Hey guys, good evening. Hello everyone, good evening. How are you doing? Can you hear me? If you can hear me, you can use the reaction
Yeah,
button. You can unmute your
yes, I
mic.
can hear you.
Oh, great. Awesome. Cool. All right. Thank you so much for joining in. I mean, we've been looking forward to today, right? All right, thank you so much. The reason for reacting is just to be sure that our network is great. All right, because I know network can really be annoying. So if you can hear me, just keep using the reaction button just to keep in check that the network is great and we can hear each other. Okay, yes. Hello everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the second edition of Project Series. And honestly,
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Christiana. I think Mr. Timothy's service is bad. Well, I'm going to be hosting on his behalf tonight. Good evening, everyone. Please, if you can hear me, please use the reaction button. Thank you, thank you. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Project Series. My name is Christiana Adetan, and I'll be your host for tonight. So, before we get started, I would just like to introduce our guest speakers. So, we have two judges for tonight. The first person is Miss Chelsea Adetan. Miss Chelsea is a purpose-driven data professional who turns data into impact. As a data analyst, she specializes in using tools like SQL, Python, and visualization platforms to extract insights and solve problems that matter. Her work goes beyond analysis. She's a passionate mentor, speaker, and active contributor to inclusive tech communities. Now evolving into data engineering, Chelsea is gaining hands-on experience with data pipeline, cloud platforms, and infrastructure, aiming to build systems that make data cleaner, faster, and more reliable. Fueled by curiosity and a deep desire to make a difference, she's committed to using data to empower decisions, elevate teams, and drive meaningful changes across industry. Welcome, Miss Chelsea, and thank you for joining us. Please, can you just say hello to us? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. The second speaker is not yet on the call. His name is Abdulaziz Sadiq. So when he comes, we're going to introduce him. So basically tonight, our judges are going to listen to the people that have worked on their projects, which are like the people from the study group, and they are going to give critique, tell them what to improve, what to remove, what should be there, what should not be there. And then those guys are going to revise their projects, and then they can then repost it and host it on platforms that they like to. So there are going to be three people presenting their projects on this call tonight. And okay, there are going to be three people presenting their projects on this call tonight. And each of them have 10 minutes to present their project. Whereas after which 10 minutes to present their project, after which the judges can say what they have to say about each person's project. So after each person's project, there's going to be like a sort of critique, and then the feedback on the critique, and then the next person, and like that and like that. So each person gets 10 minutes. So Emmanuel, you can Is Emmanuel on this call? I don't.
Yeah, so
Okay,
so
please.
he's not on the call yet.
Okay, so I think the next person is Miriam. Is Miriam on the call? Yes. So Miriam can go can go on and present your project. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kazeem, and I'll be presenting my project, my SQL project tonight. Please hold on, let me share my screen.
Yes. Okay. Miriam, your mic is unmuted if you're speaking, and then trying to zoom into your query, your editor, your SQL editor, so we could have a clearer view of your code. Thank you. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Can you see can you view my screen very well? Okay. So I'll be presenting the capstone project I did on reducing patient wait times in hospital. The project's goal is to analyze hospital operations data to identify bottlenecks in patient flow and propose SQL-driven insights to reduce average patient wait time in outpatient department. So the data set that was given to us include the patient data set, appointment data set, and doctor's data set. So the first step was to explore the data, know the kind of data types are in our data set, if it is date data type, string data type, integer, and all. So we have to explore the data to understand the kind of data we have in our database. So the first question was to get the first 10 appointments, and this is the query I wrote for that. So these are the first 10 appointments. The next question was to list distinct departments and doctors. So I use the keyword distinct to get the distinct department and doctor ID from the database, and this was the result I got. But I had an issue in such a way that I was having the recurring answers. I was expecting that I get the department just like I think there were 5 departments in the database, but I was getting the recurring answers. So I don't know how to solve that particular issue. So I just left it for the professionals to help me with that. I tried other things, but it didn't work. I just have to give it to this one. Or probably I'm correct. I really don't know. Please, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you very much. So the next question was to find average wait time per patient. So this one is kind of complicated. So what I did first was to convert the dates, because the date was given to us in date time format. It was not actually in date time format, it was a string format. So I had to convert it first to date format so that I'll be able to calculate the difference between the appointment time and the check-in time. So to do that, I use the function timestamp difference. This is it, timestamp difference, to get the difference between the appointment time and check-in time so that I would know the wait time of each patient. So this was the query I wrote for that. And then I calculated average of it. I embedded all the query inside parentheses, then got the average of it, and then grouped by patient ID to get the wait time of each patient. So this is the result of the query. Yeah, the next question was to identify the longest wait time. So this is very similar to the previous one I just did. What I did was to order by wait time in descending order to identify the longest wait time. I could have limited this one to just limited it to one, but I just wanted to get a broad view of it. That's why I limited this table. If I limit it to one, then the longest wait time is 39 minutes. It's in minutes. I converted it to minutes. The next question will calculate. Okay, I've explained. Okay, find it. I've explained down. The next question is calculate average wait time per department. So this is it's also similar to the query I wrote before, but then I had to group by department to understand, to get the average wait time for each department, and this is the results of the query. Please hope everyone can still hear me. I don't want to just keep talking. Okay, thank you very much for acknowledging that. So the next question was identify departments with highest delay. Oh, identify departments with highest delay. This is the query I wrote for that. Also similar to the one I did before. Then group by department and order by wait time to get the department with the highest delay. So from this, we can discover that cardiology department is the department with the highest delay. The next question, next question is to spot repeat offenders. So we asked to join appointments with patients to find repeat patients. Actually, I didn't join because the data set I needed, the parameters I needed to understand the repeat patient, it was in a particular table, this appointment table. So that was why I felt like there was no need for me to join. I don't know if that was wrong. So this is the query I wrote for that. So these are the patients that came to I was appointed more than one time. So I wrote the query select patient ID count to get the number of time they got an appointment. From appointment table, I grouped by patient ID and then filter it to where the number of appointments is more than one to get repeat offenders. Then the next one is we have to find if frequent patients wait less or more. I am not wrong. The frequent patients wait less or more. So this was the query I wrote for that. I selected patient ID, the number of appointments, and get the average wait time of each patient to understand if frequent patients wait less or more. Okay. So this is the result of the query, and from this, we saw that patient 1157, it came 5 times and his wait time 16.8000. I think that was the highest wait time. So I think I can say that um frequent patients wait more from the first result of the query. But then the second patient waited for 14.8 minutes. Then another patient that came 4 times also waited 16.5 minutes. I don't know if I can just make my decision based on the first patient, which is 1157. He came 5 times and his wait time was more than the other patient. The next question, we asked to get the number of appointments per doctor. So this is the query I wrote for that. I selected doctor ID, number of appointments, and then grouped by doctor ID to get the number of appointments per doctor. So this is the result of the query. So the next question was to get the average wait time by doctor. So I repeated the query I wrote previously to get the average wait time and grouped by doctor ID. And grouped by doctor ID to get the average wait time of each patient by each doctor. So this is the result of the query. Then the next one, step 6, time trends. I'll go back to that. The next questions, step 7, we asked to create a summary table showing departments, average wait time, and total appointments. So this is the summary table I used. I created a summary table using common table expression, CTE. So this is what I did with summary table as select departments, dates, mm, 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 and dates and the wait time, the total appointments, and then grouped by departments. So this is the summary table I did. Get each department, the average wait time, and their total appointments. So back to the time trends. I had an issue trying to understand that particular question, but I eventually came up with something. Not really sure about it, but I would show. So we asked to get the wait trends by the day of the week. If I'm correct, wait time trends by the day of the week. So we want to know how the wait time, the trends Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I used a window function to do that. I created city and wait, is this it? Okay, yeah, this is it. So we can see the wait time trends from this. The first appointment day, which was on the 24th of May 2025. On Saturday, the wait time was 15. The next day, the wait time was 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like that, till the end of the appointment day, according to the data set. So this is the end of my presentation, Sama. Thank you for listening.
Okay, Miriam, thank you. Well done so far. Miriam, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
All right, that was good. That was good. Okay, so I'm sure our judges heard your projects and your presentation throughout. So I'll just ask for Miss Chelsea's feedback. So Chelsea, what's up? What do you think?
All right. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. And Miriam, well done. Start by first saying well done. It takes a lot to come up with queries like that. And my first remark would be that I love your thought process towards your solutions. Like there's a way you can tell a person's thought process through their query. There are different ways to solve a particular problem, but I love the way you solved yours. I'm just going to quickly point out two things. So the first one was, could you go back, if you can hear me, could you go back to that second question where you were worried that your distance wasn't working? The one where you said you're using distance, but it was still bringing out duplicates. I want to show you why that happened.
Okay,
It,
I will do that.
yeah. All right. Okay, so run the code first. Okay, so here's the thing. When you use these things like this with MySQL, use these things, department and doctor ID, what you're actually telling SQL to do is to give you the distinct combination of department and doctor ID. You're not saying distinct department, then distinct doctor ID. That's not what you're saying. What you're saying is distinct department and doctor ID. So let's imagine, because I want to believe doctor ID, all the values they are distinct. No two doctors should be having the same ID. So let's imagine a particular doctor is working in two departments now. One is in psychiatry, another one in oncology. Now, when you use select distinct department and doctor ID like that, it will actually list out psychiatry, maybe ID 301, oncology ID 301. It's going to actually repeat the values, making you feel like as if the function is not working. So now, if you remove doctor ID from your code and then run the code again. Just run distinct department on its own. If you check well, you would realize that you are now actually getting the distinct values you wanted. So what made it replicate was the fact that the doctor ID was there. So what you are telling SQL is give me the distinct combination of department and doctor ID. So definitely a doctor can be in two departments, which would make you get duplication and not the distinct values you're actually waiting for. So that was one I wanted to point out. Then another one, which is going to be my last remark on this, was where you talked about repeat patients, that your query to solve repeat patients, and you mentioned that you didn't join even though you were asked to join. So I get, with the way you solved it, it was actually quite smart. In fact, I was intrigued and you were correct. But I believe the reason why you were asked to join was first to test your joining, of course, but secondly to get the patient's name. So with the query results you had, what you had was patient ID in your result. But if you had joined, you would have gotten patient's name. Do you understand? And I believe the end product of that particular query was to actually see the patient name, not the ID now, to see the name of the patients, to see how many, like which patients do we have that are actually repeating. I want to see their names, not the ID. And that's why you're asked to join to get something from the patient table. So next time I want to ensure that you actually join so that I can get that important information. But all in all, you did amazingly well, at least from my end. Well done and thank you.
Thank you very much, Miss Josie. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, Chelsea, thank you so much for sharing that. All right. That was good. That was good. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Damala, good evening. Can you hear us?
Oh, good evening, Mr. Timothy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how you doing?
I joined late actually, but I was able
Okay.
to get one or two things to look at.
Okay.
I would have to agree with Chelsea as regards the question number two, the distinct issue. But then I think mine is more of talking about best practices than criticism because Chelsea has said everything already. Mm. So I'll probably wait till after the third person, then I will make my best practices. But if I need to criticize the second person, I'll wait for that. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
I
So, but
actually.
for this particular person, Miriam, I don't have any issues. Okay, then I have a question. I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah. When do you know when to use CTE or subquery?
Yeah, Miriam, what do you think?
Okay, when I want to use CTE, I according to my research and the queries I'm writing, sometimes there is need to write a sub query, and there are times that you need to keep repeating some functions while you're writing your query. So creating a CTE makes it easy for me to refer to. It's like creating a CTE like creating a dummy table. So it is very easy for me to refer to my CTE instead of referring to my main query and repeating my query. So it's very easy for me to refer to city. So city is just like me creating is for me
All right.
if I don't want to keep repeating in my query, repeating my query.
All right. Well answered. Well answered. Yeah, that's a very good one from you. Okay. Yes. Thank you. I
Thank you
think
very,
that's all
very
from
much.
my own end. Yeah.
All right. So well done, Miriam. You did really good, Miss Miriam. Well done. Is there anybody from the audience that has like any question? If you have any question, it can be directed to Miss Miriam. It can be directed to any of the judges. If you have any question before we move on, anyone? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone here. All right. The next person to take the presentation, which is Miss Ngozi, she's not on this call right now. So I would say that Mr. Abdul Mr. Sadiq, you can give the critique you wanted to give about the approach. You said you wanted to say something. You can say that because so that in while you say
No.
that,
Don't get me wrong. I never said I'm going to make criticisms. Right. I Chelsea already talked about Miriam's approach and the same issue I have with her. We've settled that already. What I'm just saying is I'm waiting for the last person to make a presentation, then I can give a general best practice on how they should approach SQL queries.
all right. Sorry about
Can you
sorry
hear me?
about that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me
yeah,
clearly?
yeah. I got you. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next person to present is going to be Miss Ngozi. Is Miss Ngozi on this call? Ngozi, please, if you're on the call, let's have you. How about Emmanuel? Is Emmanuel here yet? Emmanuel is. If you're ready to present your project, please let's have you. Okay, so the remaining two students that are supposed to be presenting their projects are currently not online. So, um, Ms. Miriam, do you have any question? Do you have any question you want to ask, or any difficulty aside the one you already stated? Was there anything you faced when you are going through your project that you think that you'd want to ask, or like anything you'd want to shed more light on?
Yes, yes. I do have a question. Can I
Okay,
go ahead?
Miriam.
Sir?
Yeah, Miriam, share your screen while you ask the question so that we can still follow through with the project. Okay. And yes, you can go ahead with the question once your screen is being shared. Yeah, Miriam, are you with us? Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, Miriam, you can go ahead and ask your question and also any feedback you would like. But then I feel let the judges speak generally on the project first, then you can ask your question. But there's a hand that is up, so let's hear what Monday. Monday, good evening. What do you have in mind? Your hand is up here. Aliman Monday, how you doing? You can speak. Your hand was up. Okay, I guess maybe that was a mistake or something. All right. So Miriam, yeah, ask your question and yes, let's hear it, and then let's round up your project and know what's next from here. If you're speaking, your mic is muted.
Okay. Sorry about that. My question is, I wrote query according to the questions that were asked in the project. So my problem now is after writing the query, how do I get answers to the questions I was asked? Like how do I identify trends? There was a particular question here. I'm coming. Let me reverse the question. There was a particular question that asks, I'm coming, please.
All right, sure.
This particular question asks, do frequent patients wait less or more?
We
I
can
wrote
actually
it.
see the screen. Do you want to share that screen with us? Because we actually can see the screen you're asking from.
Okay, okay. Let me share my entire window then. My entire screen.
Okay, okay. All right. So to everyone on the call, thank you for staying true to this moment. Let's give a context of what's going on, right? Because I mean, all of a sudden SQL is in your face, all of a sudden you're hearing feedbacks, all of a sudden you're hearing thoughts, and you're wondering what's really going on, right? So this is what's happening. We had a study group, an SQL study group, for a month, 30 days. And during that study group, we went through lots of SQL concepts and techniques and basics, right? We started from the installation of an RODBMS down to a 30 days lesson, and each of the lesson had like quizzes and videos and content to help us understand it. And now we've been able to cover some fundamentals. What we're doing right here tonight is to present this project or show or being able to apply what we've learned to a project and hear what professionals and other senior colleagues think about it. All right, because one of the best ways to learn is to, of course, you have to learn by doing, and then you learn by feedbacks, right? And that's what this platform is about. Okay, so just to give a context, because I know a number of persons might be asking, what's going on, and you might just be wondering what is really happening. That's what's happening. We are coming from a study group where we've learned and studied a lot of concepts and techniques and hands-on, and we're trying to put all of those applications to a project that showcase or helps us drive a better understanding of what we've been learning in SQL, which is also SQL, right? So that's just the context. All right, back to Miriam. Yeah.
So as I was saying, there was a particular question that asked, can you see this now?
Yes, but is there a way you can zoom into the document for a little bit? Okay, yeah, it's good.
So this particular question that asks, do frequent patients wait less or more? I'll go to the query now. So this was the query I wrote, and this is the result of the query. So now to answer the question, do frequent patients wait less or more? I don't know. The first patient waited, the first patient came 5 times, and the average wait time was 16.8 minutes. Then the other patient came 5 times. The average patient was 40.8 minutes, which reduced. Then another one, 4 minutes. The other one came 4 times, and the average wait time was 60.5, which is greater than the one that came 5 times. So now to answer this question, how am I supposed to identify the trends here and to answer the question? Okay, the frequent patients wait less, the frequent patients wait more. So that's what I want to ask. How do you identify trends from query? How do you identify results and how to communicate to people that have their business problem? Like how do you get the solution from your query, from your data that you communicate to clients probably? So that's the question I have. And there's also another query like that, but I think I'll just stop at this particular one. Do you understand the question I just asked?
Yes, yes, we do. Chelsea, do you mind? No, leave your screen on. Don't stop sharing. Don't stop sharing. Don't stop sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, Chelsea, what do you think?
All right. Yeah, please go back to your screen. Let me see the query again. So what you're going to do for me now is you're going to scroll down to the end of that query. I want to see what it looks like. Okay.
Okay, this particular one, the patient came twice. Well, the wait time is 23 something. Okay.
Okay, great. So I think the reason why you're confused as to how to answer this particular one or how to interpret it is probably because truly it doesn't give any serious information at first glance. So if I was to attack this particular question now, what I'll do is probably to get the average wait time generally first. I get a value that okay, this is the average wait time. So if somebody spends longer than that average, that person is waiting for long. And if it's lower, person is being answered quickly. Then what I'll do is to group by number of appointments. That's supposed to be the column that tells you the repeat patients, right? So you're going to use so that your patient ID, instead of grouping by patient ID, I would probably have grouped by number of appointments. And then for each number of appointments group, I would calculate the average wait time per each appointments group. I don't know if you're getting me. So for what you will now be having is something like number of appointments one now, you would have a single value, average wait time, maybe 30 seconds, two, 15 minutes, three, 4 hours. And then when you have that, in fact, that will be clearer because from what I can see here now, you have just five different values in the number of appointments column. So if you had done a group by number of appointments and then calculate the average wait time per each number of appointments, the information will be very clear. We'll be able to know, okay, by average,
maybe the people that wait for 5 times, they get the highest. I don't know if you get me. So if you have something as short and summarized as that, the information will be very clear. And that thing you can now do is, after you have that summarized table, you can now get your average wait time, like I said earlier, just general average wait time, and now compare with that table which number of appointments group falls below or above that average wait time. You can now interpret your results. Do you understand? So the query you have here is a bit confusing because it's not summarized. It's not as summarized as you should be yet. If it is that summarized, what I would advise now, if you are jotting down, is instead of grouping by patient ID, group by number of appointments. And then for each number of appointments, just calculate the average wait time per each number of appointments. Do you understand? Then you get your average wait time, general average wait time, and then you can now compare with your result. Okay, number of appointments, group one, do they have a higher than average wait time or lesser than average wait time? By that, you actually be able to interpret your result. So I believe as data analyst or somebody who wants to use SQL from time to time, you should be able to interpret your query. But it will be much easier if you use the right query to give you the right results. Do you understand? It's like trying to know, okay, you are giving a query, a table of list of departments, and you want to know how many departments you have in that company, and you're now using select departments. You will still have to use your eyes to start counting up and down to know how many departments you have. But if you use select distinct department, it gives you the number of departments and it's very summarized, and then you get your answer. So the difference between the two is not that your query was wrong. The difference between the two is that you didn't use the optimized query, you use the best query to attack that question. Do you understand? So I hope that's clear.
Yes, I understand you very well. Thank you very much, Mrs. I will make some corrections.
All right.
All right. Yeah, that was good. That's true, actually. You know, that was good. Thank you. Okay. Miriam, I guess at this point, I think you have an idea now that it's not just the query, right? It's how do I best represent the result of what I'm looking for, right? Meaning you need to have like a result in your head somehow, maybe figured out, understood, or better seen. Yeah, exactly. And then look at how the query can give you that. Right, because that's the whole, like, I mean, this is not BI. If this was BI, trust me, it would be so easy to like make sense from what you're saying. But this is query. This is just tables, right? So tables needs to be in a way where the specific information you're looking for are like best represented. Yeah, so that was good, Chelsea. Interesting. Okay, back to no, still keep your screen on, still keep your project on. All right. Okay, so I'll ask Mr. Damola, generally speaking, what do you think she would have done better in this on this project, both query wise and result wise, and as well, although she did not present the question, but at least to an extent, the judges already have an idea of what the question looks like, right? So Damola, what do you think? She would have done better to make her work more easier or improve.
Honestly, I won't lie, she has actually impressed me tonight, to be honest. She has done a lot. But the thing I will just add to it is try to make your queries shorter. And the only way you can know when to make your queries shorter is when you know the difference. When do you use a particular function or a particular topic? Okay, let me say you want to use FIT. When do you use FIT? When do you use subqueries? When do you use Windows functions? Because the thing is, most of these advanced topics, right, they tend to make your whole work easier if you understand it clearly. So you can try to make your work much more shorter, your queries much more shorter. Then another thing I would like to add is honestly, we your chain of thoughts should be as fluent as possible for any other person that is looking at it. Don't get me wrong, you there's a way you can simplify whatever you're writing as queries into something that it's easy for everybody to follow along. Then so basically that's just those two for me. That's just those two for me. Then you can always try to Okay, another thing I want to ask is there a way you can add the recommendations to the end of your project so it can align with your aim and the problem statements? Can you hear me?
Mm.
Hello, can you hear me?
I didn't get the last question you asked me.
Okay, now the last question I'm asking is as regards the end of your code, like is there a kind of recommendation and insights you can drop out in form of text in a layman's terms to everybody that are not very technical? So those are the things I feel you should try and correct. So basically, what I'm just saying is, if you know when to use joins, know when to use CTEs, know when to use subqueries, and know when to use Windows function, aside the big six, in addition to your thought process, I think you should be fine. In addition to making your thought process very easy for people to understand. So I don't know if I answered your question properly, but that's what I feel.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you're right,
That's
actually. No, you're right, because most times I feel like, so this is what me I personally do, and I think what you said was actually true. So first of all, I kind of like try to understand the problem, right? And then I try to create a picture in my head of what the table should come out like. So am I going to have the am I going to have the ID of the patient and the average time? Right. So when I
Yeah,
have that picture in my
yeah,
head, then most things what I just do is I write the code and I look for what other way can I write this code that would
yeah,
not take
yeah,
this
yeah.
length.
So yeah,
So I get
so
what
to
you're
buttress
saying.
your points, let me use the last query we wrote, for example. If I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to create a chain of logic for that, I'll probably first start with okay, why does getting the count visits per patient matter?
Miriam, do you want to share that code, the screen,
Yeah,
so
you
we
can
can
share
start
it.
the screen?
So why does it matter? Why
Okay.
do we need to get the count of visits per patient? That's probably to define the number of frequent patients and number of infrequent patients. Then to measure patient, then why do we calculate average rate per patient? To measure patients experience fairly. Then yeah, so like why are we now joining them as tables? So what I'm just trying to say is that when you create it pictorially in your head, you understand the chain of thoughts, you understand the lines. Writing the queries is like the list of your problems. I don't know if you get me.
Interesting.
I
So most times
understand where
is so most times everything is already in your head before you put it down.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, everything starts in your head, especially in SQL. Everything starts from your head before it gets to your editors. Yeah, you're right. Actually, on that. So what do you think? Let me ask Chelsea. Chelsea, what do you think from a beginner perspective, whose head is not really clear on what goes and what comes, and we're kind of relying on ChatGPT perspective to generating the queries that we need to drive an insight. How do like a beginner or someone that is just getting into it who are like taking some courses but still doesn't like get the head thing, what do you think would be a good way to start or a good way to like have a clearer perspective in your head to figure anything out? Yeah, just what do you think?
Okay, I want to believe I got the question correctly. If I was speaking
Okay.
to a beginner who just wants to actually start SQL, I think the first
Yeah.
thing I would tell that beginner is don't use ChatGPT. Actually, do not use ChatGPT. At least not for the first month of your learning, if you're actually learning seriously, because it has the tendencies to make you lazy. I'm serious. I'm very serious on this. It's and also the thing is with ChatGPT, when you're asking ChatGPT for a question, like I was saying earlier, there are many ways to attack a particular question or try to solve a particular problem. It's not giving you the best, right? It's not giving you the best, like the most optimized, and there could even be errors, very possible. Right, so the whole point is, if you're just starting out as a beginner, try to understand SQL basics. I believe as human beings, there is absolutely nothing you cannot learn if you know the basics. You can now build on the basics, but know the basics. So if you're starting out as a beginner, try to understand how SQL works on a basic level, like basic query. Try to know how to use each of these commands, functions very well. Select, from, CTEs, subqueries, all the important functions you actually need. Try to know those ones, master it very well. Now, there's going to come a time when you actually now need AI to assist you. But don't let it be that when you are using AI, you have no idea what you're asking AI for. You're just asking so I can just copy and paste. That is so much going to derail your learning process. Do you understand? When you realize that you've gotten to the point where you can actually answer questions without having to use ChatGPT, there's going to come a time where maybe you're rushing, you're trying to meet up the deadline, or you're trying to solve a big issue that even you don't even know the solution, right? You can now collaborate with AI, right? But this time you're actually collaborating. You have an idea of what you're asking it to do for you. You just need to be sure you're correct, or you just need to learn something new. Not that you don't know anything at all and you're not depending fully on ChatGPT. That's not going to be a good way to start your career. If you're starting out as a beginner, try to understand the basics. Try to understand, ensure that your foundation of SQL, no matter what SQL dialect you are learning, your foundation is very solid. You have an idea on how to interpret your queries, how to answer basic questions, how to use, you have an idea of how to use all of these commands in SQL. Then you can now go ahead from there to say you want to start collaborating with AI. Understand?
Oh, okay.
And
Can I add something to what Chelsea just said?
Yeah, 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 sure.
Yeah, I believe we can use AI as a beginner ethically. Ethically, what do I mean by ethically? Like she said, you can easily learn the basics well, then you can go to ChatGPT and ask questions. You can create different scenarios of how you solve questions around the big six first. When you get different scenarios of questions, you will be exposed to real life work easily. Now that's without you going overboard or trying to learn more complex stuff. You can, like, after, what I'm trying to say basically is, after you're done learning, after going through your books or whatever material you're using to learn SQL on the basic level, ChatGPT can assist you with scenarios you can use to solve real life problems. You can do that. When you're done with that, you take it again from the second or whatever the intermediate parts you want to learn. Use the same approach again. So AI is actually here for us to accelerate learning. AI is here for us to accelerate learning. It's just about us using it the proper way and using it ethically. But the thing is, the more you get experience with it, the more projects you do, the faster it should be for you to use AI. And at that point, you'll just be the one controlling it, knowing the expected outcomes. If you don't know the results actually, but you can expect some things. You can expect what is coming out from the AI. And when you see a mistake, you can easily point to it that this is an error, and you can fix it. Yeah, so you can start on a normal way. You can read textbooks, watch videos, learn, do exercises. But if you need to immerse yourself, because imposter syndrome is very real. Imposter syndrome is real. But there's a way you can use AI ethically. You can get exposed to real life situations. I can easily tell ChatGPT to set questions or scenarios around joins for me, and it will give me like series of it. I can create problem statements myself from that and solve a lot of questions. Do you get me? So that's what I feel.
All right. Okay. Yeah, thank you for adding that. So yes, Chelsea is actually very right. And Damola just supported that. From the beginner's level of getting into SQL, you have to know your basics, right? You have to first be patient with yourself to learn and understand and know when to use this. And as well, know how they work, right? And then at that point where you've like grounded yourself, and you've exposed yourself to like all of the application of these concepts, then you can go to AI to find a guide. But if you personally are not good and you take whatever AI gives you, you are not going to be able to defend that both at work and at presentation, right? So I think that's something that everybody can harness, right? Like Tamala said, it's great when you already know what you're doing and you have all those fundamental knowledge built, and then you go to ChatGPT to ask it to create scenarios where you can apply or or just practice different cases for that concept. Say, for example, join, right? You then you start applying concepts, different scenarios for join, but then you already know all the join, right? You know all the left join, in join, all the join are familiar with you, but ChatGPT just helps you to create scenario cases that drives home that understanding. And then when you struggle in a particular case, then it means that you actually are struggling with the contextual meaning of that thing, not the technical concept of of that basics of that SQL basic, right? And then that way you know where your problem is coming from. If it's that you're not able to understand the problem or the industry or the context, or you actually do not know your basics very well. So I think I like those two perspectives. Thank you so much, Jose, for sharing that. And Damola, thank you for adding that, because that's how you get better over time. All right. And that's very, very good. I think with Miriam project, we've been able to explore a number of things. Sadly, others could not join in to present their project, and reaching out to them, they are not actively online. So I think I'd just like to hear from both of our judges, what is their feedback generally to SQL projects, right? Because it's one thing to be good fundamentally with your basics, it's one thing to also, learn, and then it's another thing to have your project structured. So I'll start with Chelsea. Chelsea, what do you think should be the best practice when it comes to SQL projects, both from doing it to having it on your portfolio or sharing that project? Well, what would your thoughts process be about? Okay. Chelsea, are you there? All right. So I think she's far away from her mic. Damola, what do you think?
Personally, SQL is great. Yeah, for logic is great. But if I'm going to create a portfolio, I'll probably use SQL as data exploration and data cleaning. And naturally, my own workflow is more of use SQL for data exploration and data cleaning. Then connect it to Python. We have different ways to connect it to Python. Then you can do further analysis in Python. Then after that, you can decide to visualize using Power BI or Tableau or whatever visualization tool you want to use. So if you can work cross-sectional that way, you can have a very powerful portfolio that is showing clients or showing recruiters that okay, you actually have a very wonderful way of reasoning and how you can structure your work and your portfolio. And other people can actually use SQL for further exploration or further data analysis, while Excel and other tools for cleaning. So depending on how you want to structure it, there's no perfect way to it. There's no perfect way. It's just about you doing more and find out what works for you. That's just what I feel.
All right, thank you. That was good actually. Honestly, so that's the idea, right? Being able to understand how to connect one tool to the other. And I like the fact that you mentioned SQL good for exploration. Most companies, or in a real case, most businesses data starts from a database, right? Especially if it's a big
Yes,
company. So if you understand SQL and then know how to move to other tools, you will just showcase your skills
yes,
very beautifully.
yes,
I like that. That's good.
yes. So sorry, let me add something again.
Okay.
You can see that most other softwares they are kind of upgrading, AI leverage and all of those things. And trust me, it's looking like SQL is not very, or it's looking like it's not useful, but that's a big lie. SQL is still very, very, very important in this space. And as a matter of fact, if you're going for an interview now, 40 or 50% of your interview questions will come from SQL. And there's a reason why they are still putting SQL into interview questions, even though it's looking like it's not the most preferred choice of people. So it is still very, very, very useful, even in the area of AI. So if you can get things done with other software quickly, you shouldn't you should still retain your logical reasoning, because SQL is going to make you reason beyond what you are thinking. It's going to make you reason a lot, and I think that's actually very helpful for the technical part of analytics.
Yeah, that was actually good. Honestly, SQL will make you think. BI might not give you that kind of, way to think, but SQL will test your thinking on the tables.
Yeah, when you are using BI, you feel like you are doing a lazy work. Like, what am I even doing?
Exactly, right?
Yeah, but SQL is actually going to test your logic. It's real.
Exactly. So,
It's real, and it's not going anywhere. Yes,
it's
it's not
not
going
good.
anywhere.
You're actually right. I mean, to even talk about Google BigQuery having SQL integrated in it, your knowledge is still going to be tested in BigQuery.
In the era of artificial intelligence, most databases are still run with relational database management system.
Exactly.
So that's to show you how important SQL is. Because you have other options. You could have decided to use MongoDB or NoSQL or whatever. But why is RDBMS still very important?
That's
And
actually
in interviews, it's like a way of streamlining or cutting a lot of applicants off,
true.
because
True.
most people struggle with it. So
Yeah,
if you can embrace it and know it well, it's going to be your superpower.
true. True. That's good. That's so good. Thank you so much, Damola, for sharing all that. That was actually a very good way to look at this. Okay, yeah, Chelsea, what's up? Are you back with us? I'd like to hear your thoughts, and then we can call it an evening.
Yes, yes. I'm sorry, I had to step out for a bit. Do you mind going over the question?
Okay, so I was asking, what will your thought process be when it comes to like SQL for a project case, right? Because it's one thing to learn, it's one thing to practice, then it's another thing to like work on a project or build your SQL skills around a project. So, what do you think about that? How can we get better, or what can we look out for when we're like working on a project on SQL?
Okay, so I'll just say look beyond the coding aspect and look at it as you trying to solve a business problem. I was watching a video just today, and they was talking about how a lot of us wants to do project and put it on our portfolio, but what you don't know is that there are like 10, if not more, other people that have done that same project with that same data. And what makes you stand out is the fact that you can relate it to business problems. If you are going for an interview, or a recruiter is looking at your portfolio, what they want to see is how well you've been able to solve business problems with your skills. It's one thing to know the skill, it's one thing to actually solve business problems with it. So if you are starting out, you want to work on SQL projects, work on projects that will showcase the business side of things, like the impact of that project on the business or the organization in which you're carrying out that project for, even if it's fictional. Let it show that you are solving a business problem. Because SQL is actually quite important. It's a major tool for a data analyst and even for a data professional, whether you're into analysis, science, engineering. SQL is important because it's the way you communicate with databases. And most structured companies now, of course, would have a database, and as data analyst, you're expected to communicate with the database. So it's a very important skill. If you're going to build on it, then build on projects that count, build on projects and showcase how impactful that project thing is on the business growth before you add it to your portfolio, or put it on your resume or anything. So that would be it from my end.
All right. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for sharing that. Honestly, it's beyond just this. You can be in a space where data guys are talking, and to you, this is all technical. But when you go out there, when you sit before hiring managers or HRs or someone that's about to give you a job, you discover that it's more than just select from where. It's how you think, it's how you approach problems, how you're able to show you're better off being hired to solve their problem or work with them than the other guy sitting in the lobby here. So I like that perspective. That's actually very, very solid. Thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, I think we've learned a lot, and if you've not learned a lot, at least you learned something. The first session, I mean, the early session we started was very technical, so you probably were not very much interested. But if you already have an affinity for SQL, then you will understand what we started with, which was the technical side. But I think the ending side was actually very good to hear what Chelsea and Damola thinks about these things, and not just the thinking, right? Is the industry perspective, right? Because you're not just learning these things for yourself. You're not just learning these things for to add to your skills. You're learning these things to be employable, to be relevant to industry, and as well to actually have technical and non-technical skill sets to your career as a data analyst, right? So I think this is actually was a beautiful evening, and at this point, I'll pass the conversation to Christy, and we can call it a lovely evening. Thank you, Miriam, for presenting, and I'm sure you've learned some things too. We're going to get back to the study group, and I'll address us properly on how we can round up the project and put it out there so we can move to the next project. And if you're interested in continuing with us on SQL project, because we still have 2 more projects to go. We started with the healthcare industry. I think the next one is going to be financial industry and how we can apply SQL to like solving that kind of problem. And then I think the last should be e-commerce. So if you're still interested in joining an SQL project, you can just leave a comment in the chats right here on the call, or you can leave the comments on the community group, and any of our community admin is going to find a way to help with that. But at this point, thank you so much all for joining. I'll just pass the attention to Christy. Hi, Christy. Also, can you hear me?
All
All
right.
right.
Good evening once again, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm really sorry I was coming and going. My service was a little bit unstable. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Miss Chelsea. Thank you, Mr. Sadiq. Thank you, Miss Miriam, for coming tonight to present your project. I'm very sure that you learned a lot. I also learned a lot from, especially from the conversations between our judges and Mr. Timothy. Thank you so much for honoring our call, and to our community guys, thank you for joining this call tonight. Um, as you know, we are planning another study group, BigQuery, SQL BigQuery study group is coming up, and if you'd like to be a part of that, you should join. You should look for wait for updates on the group, and when the link comes out, please join via the link. And a recap of this call is going to be posted on YouTube in case you missed any part of the call. And also participate actively in the community. If you have any question, you're working on any project, you think you're looking for project partner, you have any problem you're trying to solve, talk about it on the community, and we'll be sure to answer you and put you in the right direction. Thank you once again for joining us, and have a lovely weekend.